Chris Paul is so great that he gets away with being kind of a jerk, except when he's around DeMarcus Cousins. Chris Paul is one of the greatest point guards of all time. He's a legend, and he's got no problem being obnoxious or bratty or dirty, going all the way back to college.
Punch thrown by Chris Paul into the groin area.
Perhaps because Paul's never quite contended for a championship, he operates with a relentless intensity, or maybe being a pest is just in his nature. DeMarcus Cousins is a brilliant center, a one-of-a-kind superstar, and he can be kind of temperamental. Boogie hates losing so much that he loses his cool at times, and he's done a lot of losing in his career. When pushed to his limit, Cousins has blown up at refs, at media, at fans, and at multiple coaches. He is short-tempered, going all the way back to college.
Right there. See, he gave him an elbow with the right elbow. Yes, he did.
This is all fine. I'm a functioning member of society, I have a good credit score, and at home I eat snacks off of my belly like an otter. People are complex. The point is just that both Paul and Cousins are hungry and competitive to the point of it being kind of an issue sometimes, and putting two talented, assertive, kind of volatile people in the same room is going to generate feelings. It's a recipe for beef. Beef! When the Kings drafted Cousins in 2010, Paul was in New Orleans, so the two players met infrequently enough that their perfectly opposed personalities didn't react. But in 2011, Paul joined the Clippers, in Sacramento's division, thus securing 4 meetings a year with a famously short-tempered youngster. In that season, Boogie mostly got into it with Blake Griffin.
That's what Blake is going to say, because he's in L.A. where actors belong. He's an actor.
Paul fired back at Cousins too, but if he wanted revenge on the floor, he didn't get many opportunities. The Kings and Clippers met twice in December 2012, but Cousins was having a rough time with his coach, Keith Smart, that led to several benchings and even a team suspension. A rivalry was brewing, though, and our two antagonists finally collided in March of 2013. Or actually, they didn't collide. Paul ended up getting a warning from the league because of this flop, which, even for an eminent flopper like him, was particularly egregious. That game was chippy in general, and Paul spent part of the fourth quarter screaming at Cousins while he shot free throws. Paul, by the way, had reportedly spent a few minutes screaming at Cousins during halftime of a preseason game a couple months prior. He's kind of a screamer. Beef! The playoff-bound Clippers and lottery-bound Kings met again in the final game of the season, and even in that context, in the final seconds of an already decided LA victory, there was Paul being kind of obnoxious, and there was Cousins kind of overreacting to it. And I do think the constant losing is part of this for Boogie. The Clippers dominated the Kings for the entirety of this beef. Early the next season, Boogie airballed a game winner, then proceeded to forcefully prevent his teammate, Isaiah Thomas, from shaking Paul's hand post-game. That's not even the hand Isaiah was trying to shake. Paul responded to that with the level of condescension you'd expect, saying Cousins needed guidance, which, Paul may have had a point, but he's also Chris Paul. When he had his own flare-up with Andrew Bogut on Christmas, Cousins was watching, and he chimed in. And Boogie soon followed with a succession of spicy quotes in the media. By October 2015, when the Clippers beat the Kings for the 9th time in their last 10 meetings, Cousins was comfortable telling the world how he felt about that whole team.
I hate him. Honestly, I do.
I think part of the issue is that Paul would never ease off of his annoying tendencies. Like in February 2016, when LA was up 18 with 2 minutes to go, and Paul went out of his way to steal a rebound from Boogie, that game was decided. It was over. But Paul was still scrapping, and when Cousins chucked the ball out of bounds off of him, he clearly put some extra heat on it. Nearly got a headshot in there. Are things different now? Maybe. Maybe new situations shrink the beef. Paul moved from a good team in LA to a potentially great one in Houston. And Cousins is finally on a decent team in New Orleans. Of course, Boogie's not part of the Pelicans' 2018 playoff run, and one can't help but notice that the play that ended his season happened off a missed free throw, following a late-game foul by Chris Paul. I am not at all blaming Chris Paul for Boogie's injury. It's just kind of poetic. These are two guys who came into the league with reputations for being cranky, and who only became crankier. Chris Paul is hyper-competitive to the point of being an irritant, and he's spent much of his career on not quite great teams. DeMarcus Cousins is hyper-competitive to the point of being irritable, and he spent much of his career on not quite good teams. As fortunes change, the beef may be cooling, but when it was hot, it was hot. The beef was hot.
The beef.
Thank you very much for watching Beef History. If you liked it, please subscribe to SB Nation. If you didn't like it, like maybe if we tricked you into watching a video about sports when you thought it was going to be about meat, then I recommend Eater. Eater's our friend and they have a whole show about meat. It's called Primetime. Here's an episode. Check it out.